Today on the show, your voice is more powerful than you think it is. And this has been proven recently by Starbucks, Porter families, and the NFL.
Can't you see? Everyone! They're here already! You're next!
Let's go!
Welcome to the future, where the glass is half full and you'll need new glasses, where you'll be jumping from conclusions.
The past is annulled, and a new future is born!
Never before in history has so much meant so little to so many. AD on the radio.
So, I hate to hear about people losing jobs. I hate to hear about businesses failing. That's the downside of what happened today. The upside of it, the silver lining, would be, well, it's a reminder that you, the person, and we, the people, we do have power. We do have influence. And it's easy to forget that. You and I talk about this a lot on this show. Politicians, our leaders, people want you to forget that you have power. The balance of power shouldn't be in question. Our political leaders, these servants of the public servants that ask for your vote and ask for your campaign finance so that they may get other people's votes, don't really seem to be all that cognizant of the fact that you cut the check. You are the person responsible for paying them. It's your money in their pocket. They kind of gloss over that in their own thinking and in the way they approach you. And I can't think of any other institution where the person who writes the check is told what to do by the employee, the way we have it in government here in America. But that's just the way things have shaken out in this republic for which it stands. And so because of that, because the folks that are in power don't want you to have any, want you to forget that you have some, want you to forget that you have the ability to do things by yourselves, that they are not necessarily necessary. It's easy to lose sight of the fact that you've got some real power. And like I said, I don't like to hear about anybody losing their job, and I don't like to hear about any businesses failing. But what happened with Starbucks today is real proof that what you think, how you feel, how you go through life matters and can make a difference. You and I talk about personal responsibility on this show all the time. You and I talk about you with your individual liberties, making the decision to get up in the morning and write your own story, be captain of your own ship, whatever you want to apply to it, and figure out how your day is going to go. We talk about the fact that if you are waiting for a politician to make meaningful change in what your day looks like when you wake up in the morning, then you're going to be waiting an awfully long time. Never going to happen. But you always have the power to do something about your situation. With everything going on in the world, with Donald Trump meeting the leader of North Korea, Lil Kim, and there being nukes in the balance, it's so easy during times like these to go, what are we supposed to do about anything? Two guys that couldn't be trusted to get decent haircuts are going to decide the fate of the world. Holocaust or not Holocaust. These two are deciding, what good are we? How do we matter? You do matter. You always matter. So little in the face of it all, or at least that's how you feel sometimes. But like I said, what you think, what you do, how you act, your feelings, and how you go through your life matters. And I say this because, well, Starbucks has had to close a bunch of stores. They did all that sort of, what's the term the kids like to use? Virtue signaling. And it didn't really help. Company CEO Kevin Johnson said that they're going to close 150 company-owned shops instead of the expected 50 that they thought they were going to deal with earlier. Johnson admits that the decision to shut down 8,000 stores on May 29th for anti-bias training played a role in the company's poor second quarter performance. Yep, they shut down anti-bias training, lost a whole bunch of money, and, well, that's a contributing factor to the fact that they're now closing down 150 stores. They did that once in the past. They closed down stores, but here's the thing. It wasn't a virtue signaling move. It was a coffee making move. Do you remember that? Several years ago, whoever the CEO of Starbucks was at the time, I can't remember, was just like, hey, we've had complaints about our coffee. That's the most important thing. So we're going to close for business for a little bit, and we are going to teach every last employee how to make a proper cup of coffee. And that sort of worked. Probably because it improved the overall taste of the coffee that you and I were paying entirely too much money for. But in this case, it didn't work. Why? Because Americans had made a decision. You had made a decision. You voted with your dollar. You decided, I'm going to the Coffee Bean today, or I'm going to take my coffee from home today. Starbucks won't get any of my money. They can close down for anti-bias training, but something reprehensible happened while they were in charge, and for that reason, I'm out. And like I said, this massive company that you would think you have no power or influence over, closing 150 stores because of what you, the American person, thought. Never forget that.
Real radio.
104.1.
Where the left and right come together for fundamental truths. AD on the radio, on Twitter at ADSXE.
You know, while we're on the topic of your ability to affect real change in the world, like we're talking about with Starbucks. Starbucks had something hideously unfortunate happen. A person was disrespected because of the color of their skin on Starbucks' watch. The American public went, it's not okay. You're a massive company. You got to do better than this. And now Starbucks, after shutting down shop, 800 stores for a day of racial bias training, have had to concede some defeat, and they're being forced to close 150 locations. Why? Because of the way you, the American people, thought. Now, you might be on a completely different page. I'm just throwing that out there as an arbitrary example. And then, well, while we're on the freaking topic, like I said, this past week just gone by, Donald Trump went on the record saying that he could not do anything to stop family separation at the border. Couldn't do it. Impossible. It is an impossibility for Donald Trump to do anything to end family separation at the border. And en masse, the entirety of the American population, the entirety of the world that was looking at this thing went, you know, regardless of how you feel about border control, regardless of how you feel about people coming into this country, regardless how you feel about any of this, you know whose fault? This is not a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old. They're a child. They're innocent. They can't do anything about their situation. Maybe they have hideously irresponsible parents and they're suffering through the consequences of that. But bottom line is they're kids and they're innocent. And, well, it would be great if somebody could do something a little bit better for them. And Donald Trump last week went from saying that he couldn't do anything to stop family separation at the border to this.
We're signing an executive order. It's about keeping families together while at the same time being sure that we have a very powerful, very strong border, and border security will be equal, if not greater, than previously. I didn't like the sight or the feeling of families being separated. There's a problem that's gone on for many years, as you know, through many administrations, and we're working very hard on immigration. It's been just left out in the cold. People haven't dealt with it, and we are dealing with it. So we're keeping families together, and this will solve that problem. At the same time, we are keeping a very powerful border, and it continues to be a zero tolerance. We have zero tolerance for people that enter our country illegally.
So there you go. Families that are nabbed at the border will now be kept together. There's this big question about the families that have already been separated. That's a whole big thing. But there you go. And by the way, as much as you might be loath to admit it if you're a Donald Trump detractor, this was not a problem that was exclusive to him. Every administration throughout the history of America has had some form of human rights atrocity. Some form of, oh God, that's really not cool, that happened on their watch. And it's a great example. It's a great example and a great reminder yet again that if you want to pledge allegiance to a particular political party, if you want to say they're always right and I'm always behind them, If you want to wrap yourself up in the warm security blanket of feeling as though you don't have to think about things beyond voting straight, take it whatever the hell you vote, well, it's a decent reminder to you, me, all of us, that these are still politicians. These are still people that are callous and self-serving. These are still people that are not really about serving the public. These are still people that are totally okay with some really horrible things happening on their watch. The idea of children being put in a hideously unfortunate position at the border is something that you should lay directly at the foot of the steps of the White House for every president up until now to take responsibility for. Bush, Clinton, Obama, and up until yesterday, Trump. So, I would remind you again that it is down to you what kind of day you have. You get up and you write your own story. But it's also down to you what sort of country you live in. Don't forget you're a citizen with individual liberty and the right to go out there and live your life and the right to go out there and say what the hell is on your mind. And when enough of us get together and say, oh, that's wrong. Well, it's been going on for years. Well, that doesn't make it right. We, the American people, were a little bit blind to this. These pictures are getting out and you know what? It might be a byproduct of people wanting to go after Trump. I mean, like, this is... And by the way, one thing we should do is chill on this sort of like the comparison of that to Auschwitz and other sort of Nazi camps. Let's not demean the memory of World War II survivors by going like, this is such a Nazi move. But it was something that, whether it was being used as a tool to go after Donald Trump by Donald Trump's detractors, or whether it was people going, holy crap, we've been doing this. We, the American people, on our watch, this has been happening. Politicians have been doing this. People have been separating innocent infants from their families at the border. Kids are being kept in these conditions. Holy crap. This is not okay. Maybe we're just waking up to it now, but it's not okay. Whatever the hell the reason is, people decided it was not okay. Whatever the hell the reason is that people became aware of this. The bottom line is, it was the voice of people. Wasn't the voice of politicians, wasn't the voice of anybody but folks like you, me, everyday individuals deciding what they were going to do and how they were going to feel and how that affected their place in the world. And really quickly, the most powerful man on the face of the planet went from saying, can't do anything about it, to, I'm going to do something about it. It's because of you.
For more stimulation and less irritation, 9 out of 10 doctors choose KPRC AM 950, Houston's more stimulating talk radio.
Don't get the blues, get all the news. We mean all of you guys out there in Radioland. All aboard!
He's back. AD on the radio.
Give it up, yeah. Give it up, yeah. Bring this on, come on.
So did you see the latest chapter that's unfolding between Donald Trump, president of these United States of America, the Cheeto-in-Chief, and the NFL? I think, especially because the NFL season isn't really happening at the moment, a lot of people got fatigued on the whole back and forth because it looked like it wasn't going anywhere meaningful for a really long time. All it was serving to do was irritate people, make them angry. Some people it offended, and other people it enraged because it was a whole sort of situation where people were going, how can you deny Americans their right to say there's something wrong with this country and we have a right to talk about that? Anyways, people just got worn out. They got burnt out on it. But an interesting new chapter has started in the saga of Donald Trump and the NFL. And, well, is it placating people? Possibly. Could some real change come from it? Yeah, maybe. And we'll get into that in just a little bit. Right now, though, I wanted to talk to you about your kids, if you've got any. And the fact that, well, you should cherish these next few days with your kids home from school because things are about to get dark. As it turns out, according to scientists, Kids don't really like, or rather, parents don't really like hanging out with their kids. It gets sort of miserable for you when they're home from school. You've felt it internally. You've maybe never said it, but as it turns out, you're not the only person that feels that way, and maybe you should feel okay about saying it out loud. I hate it when my kid is at home from school for the summer. There, you said it. Don't you feel better? Maybe it's because we're grown-ups. We don't relate to kids. At some point, we forgot how to be kids. At some point, we forgot how to play. At some point, we forgot how to engage our childlike minds. And maybe we should get back to that. Maybe your summertime with your kid can be an opportunity to do that. How would you do that? Well, Mark Pita said you should do it through practical jokes.
Keep young, be silly, act like a kid once in a while. It keeps you young. When was the last time you made a crank call? Right? Well, I still get them. I call them crank calls. They call themselves creditors. But, whatever. They don't even know they're making a crank call. But, so I figured out a few practical jokes you could do to keep you young. And the reason these work is adults don't expect us to act this way. That's why they work. You go to Starbucks and they go, what's your name? Put on the cup. What's your name? I always say, put the words, my boyfriend on the cup. They go, oh, that's cute. I'll do that. But it's a corporate run place, corporate rules. The guy makes my coffee. He's got to do it. My boyfriend. Latte for my boyfriend. I just sit in the comfy chairs and watch, Have you ever overheard someone give their name at a coffee shop? This woman in front of me goes, my name is Janet. Oh, jeez, okay. Janet has her coffee and leaves. I have my coffee and I stay. About an hour goes by. Now I'm walking downtown. I see her walking opposite me, so I had to do it. I had to go, oh, Janet? It's funny. No one has ever said to me, I don't know you. They always go, hi. Then you can take it wherever you want. I said, oh my gosh, 8 years ago, did you get in trouble that night? I still have your underwear. I don't think you should. What?
So yeah, Mark Pita talking about how you can stay young and maintain a level of communication with your child by pulling practical jokes. But yeah, like I said, cherish these next few days with your kids home from school because things are about to go incredibly dark. According to a new study, the average parent only lasts, count them, 13 days. 13 days into their kid's summer break before they go freaking nuts. Less than 2 weeks. And the main reason is you feel a lot of pressure to keep them entertained. And you know what? I don't have kids, but I absolutely understand this. Family comes over. What happens when family comes over? Oh, we just want to see you. We don't really care. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to do anything special. And like, oh no. Now I have to plan like 20 different outings. Okay, we can go to the park. We can go to the zoo. We can go to the museum. This is your mother. This is your sister. This is your brother. These are people that you know and you've known your whole life. But when they come to visit, you feel under incredible amounts of pressure to keep them entertained. When really you probably could just kind of sit around and do nothing. But that never works. And it's so funny because I feel that pressure when I'm around family. You got to come up with activities. And we all do this. Like, man, I go to my family's place for Christmas and my aunt will have gotten a massive box of toys so that we can all play games outside because you got family there. What are you going to do with them? And you know what? We all had a great time running around playing the games. And we probably would be just fine sitting around and catching up going like, how you been for the last year? I haven't talked to you in a little while. But the fact that the games are there, we now go, what will this evening's entertainment be? It's weird. You shouldn't feel pressure to keep your family entertained. You shouldn't necessarily feel pressure to keep your kids entertained, but you do. And for that reason, after 13 days into their summer vacation, you can't stand them. You feel pressure to stimulate their young minds. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's because you are taking responsibility for putting this little person out into the world so that they have a shot at a life, a shot at a real education, a shot at a meaningful and fulfilling way that they make their way in the world. But maybe that's why you feel the pressure to stimulate the minds of tomorrow. And for that reason, you want no part of it and you want them gone after 13 days into their summer vacation. 60% of parents have gone on the record saying that they feel like they have to figure out activities for the entire summer. I guess that's why day camp and summer camp and anything where you can ship the kids away, not necessarily because you don't want to be around them, but because you don't want to take responsibility for how their day plays out, are popular. Did you go to camp when you were a kid? I went to day camp. I went to sleepaway camp once, and I wasn't necessarily a fan of it. But yeah, that's really what you're doing. You're passing the buck of the development of your child onto someone else. Me, I spent most of my summer. My mom wasn't big on planning activities. I know we did stuff, and she'd probably be mortified and have a heart attack now if she heard me say, you never planned anything for our summers, because I'm sure she spent all sorts of time trying to figure out how to keep us entertained. But I sort of remember having a lot of freedom and a lot of books. We would go to the library a lot. Oh, take your kids to the library over the summer. It's a magical thing because you can just drop them off. And you love the summertime library visits because, what are libraries? They're always air conditioned. Now, admittedly, when I was a kid, I do not remember, and it's probably because of the introduction of the internet into libraries, but I do not remember as a child going to the library and finding a bunch of homeless people pleasuring themselves to things on the interwebs. That's a new phenomenon. That might sort of like affect your decision to drop your kids off at the library and let them have at it. But there was something magical about those summer trips to the library. They smell like books. That's what libraries smell like. It's a whole different feel when you walk in there. Silence sounds different in a library, the way silence sounds different in a church. And that summer reading thing, man, that was the greatest. And I'll never forget feeling like, oh my gosh, every single one of these things in here, the books, the compact discs, the comics, the newspapers, all this information that's available to me, all these things that I want to read, all these things that will entertain me, all these things that I can enjoy, I can just take them. This is awesome. I love libraries. And you know what? If you haven't been to a library in a little while, go back as an adult. I haven't done it in a little while, but I used to go to the library. Well, one of the ones in Houston. If you're somebody listening on KPRC in Houston, there's one sort of right around Montrose. And I used to go in. They had an excellent graphic novel selection. I used to go check out comic books from the library and go read them at Herman Park. It's the best. And not only is it a great thing to do, not only is it something that you can do as a citizen, because we live in a country that has, as much as you might have beefs and gripes and all these things with it, we've got more freedom here than people do all over the rest of the world. And we've got these incredible things, these libraries that are there for our amusement and our entertainment and our public edification. But reconnect with the library. It's the greatest. It will, at the same time, as it gives you an opportunity to slow down and read, reconnect you with that piece of your childhood that is so unbelievably valuable, that seeking-minded openness that you had before the world beat that down and before obligations and bills and needing to study for all of your tests and get good grades so you can go on to a good college and get a job so you could pay all those bills and meet all those obligations and look after the family that you'd amassed. Before all that stuff kind of sort of weighed you down, you went to the library and you had this incredible open feeling. And I almost promise you that if you go back to a library now as an adult, especially during the summertime, and just sort of wander around looking at all this stuff, check out a book, go read it in the park. I don't know. But you will be reconnected with something very important from your childhood. And maybe that'll make it a little bit easier to have your own kids around you past the 13 days at which apparently parents meet their threshold. But yeah, 60% of parents feel like they have to figure out activities for the entirety of the summer. And more have felt like they've let their kid down. People felt like they're letting their kid down because they didn't come up with enough good stuff. The top things for parents to do to keep their kids occupied were amusement parks, movies, the zoo, bowling, and camping. But in between, and this is the weird part, in between, the kids are mostly just staring at screens. By the way, did you go to amusement parks as kids? I'll never forget, summer between 8th and 9th grade, I was living in England, and I went to hang out with my buddy Andrew, who lived in England for a little bit. He was one of my best friends, but the school where I went in England was a place where you kind of had transient kids. Parents moved to England for a couple of years because of some sort of work deal, and then they moved back. I was the lifer. I was there from the time when I was very young to around graduation time. But all my kids, all my friends that were kids were sort of in and out, which was in some ways kind of annoying because you make a friendship and then the kid bails. But in other ways, it was really cool because then you had friends dotted all over the world that you could go hang out and visit with. And I did that with a buddy of mine in California, in Northern California. Spent a good chunk of my summer with him, hanging with this dude, Andrew. And what did his mom do? She figured out that we were kids, and because of that, she could get us a good deal on the rate to go to Great Adventure, I think it was. But we got summer-long amusement park passes where we could go literally all the time. And there was this one place that had 10-cent chicken wings there. So with our meager amounts of pocket money and this little pass that got us in and out of amusement parks all summer long, we were straight up entertained. And this guy's mom must have felt like an absolute champion because we were happier than anything because we got to go ride roller coasters literally all day long, every single day, all summer long. And she'd kept our young minds stimulated and gotten us out of the house. It was a big win. So yeah, amusement parks were a big deal. And it's sort of like, I suppose, when you're a kid, it's sort of like malls. There's a real life with training wheels. Like you would never want to drop your kid off on a street corner of a city. But for some reason, if you drop them off at a mall, that seems okay. It's a little contained ecosystem. There's security guards. You know that there's food. You know that there's water. You know that there's a bathroom facility. And you know that they're going to encounter real life situations, maybe some creepy people, maybe some drunken people, maybe some things that they're going to have to learn how to process as an adult. But you feel sort of okay about dropping your kid off at the mall. Same with amusement parks. I wonder, actually, with all the malls going away, with all the brick and mortar establishments going away, because of the fact that if you're like me and the rest of us, the way you like to shop is from the comfort of your couch, probably in your underwear, covered in Cheeto dust crumbs, ordering whatever the hell you want to be delivered to your front door in a matter of hours. If because of that, all the shopping malls go away, I wonder where kids are going to get that sort of like reality with training wheel situation that we got when we were kids growing up. They'll get it somewhere else. But do you remember? That was such a big part of your summer as a kid. Amusement parks, malls, kind of sort of like a safe-ish environment. Definitely not the real world yet. And you could kind of sort of start to figure it out. Yeah, the malls are going away. Alackaday, forsooth. Whatever shall we do without the formative experiences that youth are afforded by getting their own Auntie Anne's pretzel and Orange Julius. But yeah, the top things that parents do to keep their kids occupied are amusement parks, movies, the zoo, bowling, and camping. But in between all of these things, kids are mostly just staring at screens. That's a lost battle, right? Our parents, when we were kids, telling us, don't watch so much TV. Don't sit so close to the TV. And there's nothing you can do to limit your kids' interaction with a screen because it's just where we're at in America. They need a tablet. Maybe not a tablet, but they need a phone. If you want to exist in society in 2018, a phone becomes necessary at some stage in the game. And you can't take that away in the same way that you could ration TV. I mean, obviously you can go, give me your phone, go to your room. But kids are going to be in front of a screen no matter what. So that battle that our parents fought so hard to limit our screen time is just, it's gone. Don't sit so close. People holding screens literally inches from their face for 95% of their days. But yeah, between the amusement parks, movies, zoo, bowling, camping, all of the above, kids are mostly just staring at screens. This study found that kids spend the equivalent of 9 entire days during the summer. 9 entire days during the summer in front of a screen. 9 consecutive 24-hour periods in front of a screen, probably playing video games. And you know what? That seems a little low. Hey, did you see the latest between Donald Trump and the NFL? You've seen how the most recent chapter in that particular saga is playing out? It looks as though there might be an opportunity for shock horror, never would have seen this one coming, some real and kind of meaningful difference to be made.
Now, more AD on the radio.
Back once again, the ill behavior, delivering and giving you my musical savior. Back once again, it's your boy AD, and can't nobody rock a body better than me. Back once again, the ill behavior, delivering and giving you a musical savior. Back once again, it's your boy AD, and can't nobody rock a body better than me.
So if you're like a lot of people, you are already fatigued on the constant never-ending issues with the NFL before the kneeling during the anthem started. I mean, why do we watch sports? Because we want to be reminded of the troubles in our society on a regular basis? No. Sports are entertainment to you and I. Sports are a chance to free ourselves from the shackles of logic and reason. Sports are an opportunity to develop a real emotional attachment to a bunch of men from other cities than the one you grew up in that happen to play in your town, that are employees of a private organization that we have nothing to do with. Yet we feel this incredible pride of ownership and loyalty toward it. And I'm no different. I mean, I'm not that big of a football fan, but I know exactly what it is to be a sports fan. And a big part of the reason why you're a sports fan, and a big part of the reason why I never sort of succumb to any of the negativity that goes with being a sports fan, people saying, sell the team, we'll never succeed with owners like these, or this guy's useless, we spent way too much money on his contract. But part of the reason I never do that is because, well, when I watch a Mets game, it's my happy place. I love the Mets when they win. I love them when they lose. I love the Mets. I mean, I love it when they win. I get sad when they lose. But I never want my relationship with my sports team to be anything other than a happy thing. So even before the kneeling, a lot of people were just kind of over it. The NFL had all these super questionable business practices, illegal, ethical, moral no-nos that were being committed on a regular basis, not doing the right thing to curb concussion, not doing the right thing with regard to people that were guilty of domestic abuse that were part of the NFL organization. And all you wanted to do was watch your game and go, yay, team. And you stopped being able to do that. And then folks started kneeling, and it became, well, less and less like that escape that you so badly need, and that you stopped getting from the world of professional football years earlier. You know what killed it for me with the NFL? When I found out they didn't pay taxes, when I found out they were essentially a non-profit organization, I was like, how was this allowed to happen? And now they do, but for years they did not. And I'm still, well, if you've listened to the show for any length of time, you know that I deeply resent being bent over by Uncle Scam on a regular basis, and the idea that the NFL didn't have to take it in the same way that we did. Ugh. What sort of crooked backroom dealing led to that situation? Well, that's a whole other show in and of itself. But the ongoing NFL controversy, when players did start kneeling, was something that, while it detracted from our escape, in many ways, was a big deal. These guys weren't necessarily doing it to disrespect the flag, or disrespect our anthem, or disrespect veterans. They were doing it because they were trying to say something with a platform that they'd been afforded about social injustice, racism, problems in America that are very real. A lot of people say Colin Kaepernick started doing this to distract from having had a really lousy season in a search for relevance. And you know what? If you want to believe that, and if that's the case, that's true. But, well, not everybody was having a lousy season that decided to take a knee in this situation. You and I have talked about this ad nauseum on the show. If I was an NFL player, would I kneel? No, I wouldn't. For two important reasons. One, I don't ever want to risk a veteran being offended. There are plenty of veterans that said, hey, we risk our lives for exactly this sort of thing so that people have the freedom that we fought for, and use the freedom that we fought for in America to express themselves. That's America. But there were plenty of other veterans that went, oh, come on. We were willing to die. Many of us did die. This is really disrespecting our service. And I get that too. And because of that faction, I would never want to be misconstrued. I would never want to have my message of, hey, we really got to do something about this, diluted by the fact that some people took great personal offense at it. I would find a way, and this is easier said than done, but I would find a way to communicate the things that were on my mind in a way that made people listen, as opposed to a way that widened a divide. And that's the other thing that I didn't like about it. Not that it wasn't addressing some very real problems that need to be addressed, but I was like, people are getting so angry. People are looking at these folks going, look at this bunch of rich superstar athletes living in their $1 million mansions and driving their cars that cost hundreds of thousands to practice, to play a game, all of which happened to them because they live here in America. These spoiled bunches of so-and-sos that was the general response from the people that they were trying to reach and say, hey, there's a real problem. We would like it if you take a second look at these situations. This is long overdue. That was the response from a lot of people. It wasn't the desired one. It wasn't, hey, how can we get closer together on this one? So because it caused a divide, and because it was something that offended veterans. It's not something that I would have participated in had I been in the NFL, by the way. Regardless of the fact that my potential time to play with the NFL is over, even when I was young enough, I am in no way, shape, or form in any way a candidate for any of this sort of thing. My athleticism was never something that was going to do much for me in terms of giving me a voice. So me saying, if I was an NFL player, I wouldn't do this. Understand, this is purely fantasy when we're talking about it. But Donald Trump, oh man, he got really angry. He said, when I see people disrespecting our anthem, I think NFL owners should just fire them. And then the angry mob got behind him and went, yeah, fire him. And, well, it just seemed to go nowhere. People were only too quick to paint these nonviolent protests as unpatriotic. And it didn't seem to do anything meaningful. And you know what? Maybe this is a giant PR excursion. Maybe this was just, Donald Trump going, okay, we got to do something about our national pastime. This isn't good. There's less money being made, less people watching this sort of thing. Overall, if things like football and baseball don't do well, it's not good for America. Let's offer some sort of olive branch situation and realize that I can't beat everyone's public opinion, because it didn't make NFL players go, oh, well, we respect Donald Trump and we're going to stand behind our president, therefore we're going to stand up. No. It was heard loud and proud all across the NFL. F that guy. We're going to do what the hell we want to do because we're Americans. And so, because Donald Trump wasn't able to control these folks in a meaningful way before it got out of hand, he extended an olive branch, and weirdly enough, it looks like this might actually go somewhere.
Leave the stimulation to the professionals.
Everyone is so smart.
KPRC, more stimulating talk radio.
There's something happening here, and you should know what it is. The dumbing up of America. Now, more AD on the radio.
So, this is one of those situations like, I don't know, ghosts, where I'd love to be proven wrong. Do you believe in the afterlife? Do you believe in ghosts and hauntings? Man, I went to the Whaley House with some relatives a little while ago. Case in point, like we were saying earlier in the show, you have relatives around, you got to figure out activities for them. Went to the Whaley House, allegedly the most haunted place in all of America. And I'm a skeptic. I don't believe in ghosts because I've never seen a ghost. I've never experienced a ghost. But I would love to think that there's something more and get tangible, concrete proof that I believed in that would suggest there was more after death. And I guess I have that attitude to what was going on in the NFL. The kneeling, while I respected it, I didn't think anything meaningful was going to come from it. I thought it was just going to widen the divide. But it's one of those situations like, finding out that there is such a thing as a ghost and there is an afterlife or whatever, where I'd love to be proven wrong. And you know what? Looks like I might just be about to be proven wrong. Looks like there might, shock, horror, gasp, out of the mudslinging and the widening of the divide that seemed to happen when players were taking a knee and Donald Trump said they should all be fired and they responded by going, F that guy. It looks like there could be something interesting about to happen. The NFL players have responded to Trump's offer of pardons. Yeah. Did you catch this? Donald Trump, earlier this month, pardoned Alice Johnson, 63-year-old who was serving a life sentence for a nonviolent drug offense. And after that, he made an offer that was, well, kind of interesting. He went, hey, I've just pardoned someone for a nonviolent drug offense. They were serving a life sentence. Now they're out. A big part of these protests, big part of NFL players taking a knee was to point out things like racism in the criminal justice system, police brutality, things of that nature. And he said, based on my newfound ability to win popularity points by pardoning people, I'm going to engage the NFL and offer them up a chance to get their buddies pardoned. That's basically what happened. And it's kind of insane, but it appears like it seems as though this might actually move forward. The NFL looks like they might take him up on his offer of inspecting a potential list of folks that they think should be pardoned. There was a New York Times editorial, and 4 players, Doug Baldwin, Malcolm Jenkins, Anquan Boldin, and Benjamin Watson, they're taking Donald Trump up on his offer. Now, this is what Donald Trump had to say in this situation.
And I'm going to ask them to recommend to me people that were unfairly treated, friends of theirs or people that they know about. And I'm going to take a look at those applications. And if I find, and my committee finds that they're unfairly treated, then we will pardon them or at least let them out.
Yeah. So me and my committee are going to look at a list of people that you think should get off the hook. And if they've been treated unfairly, then me and my committee are going to pardon them or at least let them out of jail. That was the offer that Donald Trump floated to the NFL. So it puts a bunch of professional athletes who decided to start kneeling during a national anthem in a very bizarre situation. One that could probably only have occurred under Donald Trump, where he went, "Oh, you think people are in jail unfairly? All right, what would you do about it?" And it's interesting because the kneeling was sort of in protest to something that wasn't so finite and tangible. Donald Trump kicked it back to him and said, "Name names and we'll work on it." Yeah, you are broadly protesting racism and inequality, but can you give me some specifics to work with? And so, well, there's some specifics that Donald Trump's been given to work with, courtesy of 4 players, Doug Baldwin, Malcolm Jenkins, Anquan Boldin, and Benjamin Watson. Now, there's a lot of conditions that go with what Donald Trump offered. There's all sorts of room for him to maneuver out of doing anything meaningful, but here's what the players said. Here's how they responded. The players said, "As Americans, it is our constitutional right to question injustices when they occur, and as we see them daily. Police brutality, unnecessary incarceration, excessive criminal sentencing, residential segregation, and educational inequality." And you know that whole argument of, look at these millionaire athletes not appreciating the ability they've been given to play a game and collect a huge paycheck that they only have because they're here in America, the greatest country in the world. They responded to the whole sort of, spoiled millionaire athlete accusation by saying, "Our being professional athletes has nothing to do with our commitment to fighting injustice. We are citizens who embrace the values of empathy, integrity, and justice, and we will fight for what we believe is right. We weren't elected to do this. We do it because we love this country, our communities, and the people in them. This is our America. This is our right. President Trump could help. He could use his powers, including the clemency power, to make a real dent in the federal prison population." And later on, they noted that commuted sentences could be a thing for nonviolent offenders. Offenders that have been jailed that were elderly, people that were low risk. The elderly make up, I think, close to 30% of the federal prison population. And I guess what they're asking for is a compassionate release. They said of the roughly 185,000 people locked up in federal prisons, about 79,000 are there for drug offenses of some kind, and 13.5% of them have sentences of 20 years or more. And they're taking him up on it. It's interesting. Is this a little bit of pandering on Donald Trump's part? Absolutely, unquestionably, without a shadow of a doubt. This is him going, "I seem to have gotten into a bit of an unwinnable war." In the meantime, there's lots of advertising dollars being lost by the NFL. And if there's one thing I understand, it's advertising dollars, being the reality television show star that I am. And, well, I want the American economy to do well. I want people to be happy. I want to go down as the greatest president in the history of presidents ever. That's what he wants. He wants a Nobel Prize. He wants every sort of award and accolade that he can get. And if there is a giant gaping flesh wound of a problem in America's national pastime under his watch, well, that doesn't look good. So, yeah, he's absolutely kind of pandering in this situation, but it seems as though something real and something meaningful could come out of it, especially if you start getting specific. And this is what I love. This is what I love about how this situation is developing and progressing. People say we're angry about racism. We're angry about injustice. And so we're going to take a knee. Well, that's very, very broad. And while people are absolutely right to be angry about injustice and racism and inequalities and take a knee as a form of protest, getting specific is what's going to help get things done. It's what I really loved about Martin Luther King's vision. This is what I really loved about Martin Luther King's vision versus Barack Obama's vision. Martin Luther King had specifics. He painted a picture of what the world should look like. I have a dream that one day we'll live in a world where children of different color can play together. I paraphrase, of course, but it was a very specific, very vivid picture that he painted. And I loved that. And I thought it was so much more meaningful and powerful than when Obama came on the scene and started saying, hope, change. Hope and change are fantastic. But what does it actually look like? And this isn't unique to Obama. Every politician has done this. You run on vague platitudes without having to shoulder the burden of accountability for when these vague platitudes wind up being meaningless. If you say, I'm going to create a world where white kids and black kids can play together and it's no big deal, that's specific. If you say, I'm going to give you hope and there will be change, well, when people go, I voted for some change, but now that's all I've got left in my pocket. This isn't kind of like the change that I wanted. Well, you kind of got nothing left to stand on because you weren't specific about the type of change that you wanted. You just went along with hope, change, and went, hey, these sound good to me. Not you, specifically. But do you see the difference? Do you see the difference between sort of kneeling and going, we are protesting racial injustice, and how that makes people angry? And then the specificity of going, I think Alice Johnson, who is 63 years old and a nonviolent offender that's been locked up for the rest of their life, I think they should get out. And Donald Trump goes, oh, well, that's easy. I mean, if you're asking for massive change, if you're asking me to make racism go away, that's just going to make me angry because that puts me in an unwinnable situation. But if you give me a way that I can win it, if you give me specific names, who do you got? What friend of yours do you feel has been unfairly locked up? And by the way, the lilting suggestion of like, yeah, you're all not white. You must know people that are in jail for some reason or another. Do you think they should get out? Maybe I can help with that. I mean, it's not the most subtle move in the world, but it is a great illustration of how when you get specific, how when you are defined with your goals, your dreams, where you want to go in life, it makes a huge difference. And so, like I said, miracle of freaking miracles. It looks as though, and like I said, I'd love to be proven wrong. It looks as though something meaningful might come out of the back and forth between Donald Trump and the NFL. And that, my friend, is why hope for me will always spring eternal. That is why I will never give up on you, why I'll never give up on me, I'll never give up on America. It doesn't matter who's in charge. It doesn't matter who's calling the shots. It doesn't matter how embarrassing they are. It doesn't matter how much you wish they didn't have a Twitter account. It doesn't matter the sort of mealy-mouthed half sentences that come out of their mouth on a regular basis by which the rest of the world judges us and judges us harshly. I will always hold out hope that something good can happen. Because it often does. And I would encourage you to do the same thing. I'm quite sure that if you search back through your memory, if you search back through your feelings at the time that the NFL was kneeling and Donald Trump was screaming about how they should all be fired, and there was an angry mob behind him going, these spoiled so-and-sos have no right to protest anything. If you search your mind and think of how you felt at the time about what this was going to bring, I cannot imagine that you thought, this is going to lead to something positive. But maybe letting go of that cynicism a little bit is what's going to serve us in these uncertain times. Maybe trusting that human beings ultimately at the core of it, are good. Maybe not being divided by people that seek to divide us so they can conquer us. Maybe if we allow ourselves the benefit of some optimism every now and then, things will work out. And I'm not saying this whole situation between Donald Trump and the NFL has worked out per se, but it appears to be going a lot better than you, me, all of us thought it would not so long ago. So there's hope. There's always hope. And I hope we chat tomorrow. Thank you so much for hanging. I'll be back soon. We'll do it all over again. In the meantime, if you need anything, hit me up at ADSXE is where you can find me on Instagram and Twitter, or you can email me, ad@iheartradio.com. Have a great night.